Over the 5+ years of Apex Legends lifespan, there has been overpowered weapons, completely busted legends, and insane movement mechanics that have required emergency hotfixes and adjustments due to how crazy they were. Apex has changed dramatically since its inception, and today we're going to look at the top 10 most busted things in Apex Legends history. I don't know what this is. Oh my god. It's a... Bro. It seems fitting to start with what was the first overpowered legend to get released during a season. Season 7's Horizon, even to this day, has been able to compete at the top of the meta, but her first couple months were actually next level. Her kit was so insane that she has nearly seen a dozen or more nerfs in the past few years. The main power was her original tactical lift. The cooldown was only 16 seconds, and it started immediately after using, meaning she only had a couple seconds where you would not have the lift be active. You also moved up the lift at a much greater speed, and you could sit on top of it for as long as you wanted, turreting down on enemies with perfect accuracy that did used to exist. Unlike other legends who were nerfed quickly, these were the days where things did not necessarily get patched right away, and Horizon stayed in this unchanged state for nearly 2 months until her tactical finally got a cooldown nerf, and her lift mobility wouldn't be changed for 2 entire seasons. What made this extra special is that Horizon came after the release of legends like Rampart, Revenant, Loba, and Crypto, all who were pretty bad at the time, making her overpowered capabilities much more surprising. Original Apex was a simpler time, only 6 base legends with 2 unlockables, which meant there was not a lot of variety on the battlefield. Pathfinder was an instant fan favorite, not only due to his witty personality, but his incredible grapple. Pathfinder's grapple had a very fast 15-second cooldown, allowing players to hop in and out of battle with unfounded movement and lethality in his kit. This comboed with the super slim hitbox that he had, and the overall power of the original arsenal of weapons meant a skilled Pathfinder could fly around enemy teams, picking them off one at a time. Path saw a number of changes to his hitbox and grapple speed of activation, but it wasn't until over a year later when Pathfinder finally saw his grapple gun go from a flat 15 all the way to a 35-second cooldown, ending what we would refer to as the golden age of Pathfinder's reign. Apex Legends weaponry has seen many ups and downs, but at launch, everything was tuned to eliminate enemies at blazing fast speeds, while 2 to 4x optics on SMGs and a 160 plus damage per hit Peacekeeper was pretty wild compared to today. It's going to be the OG Wingman that locks in my 8th spot, as it was one of the most busted weapons in the history of the game. It was even superior to the care package version that we have seen in Season 19 and Season 20, and it was on the ground. The OG Wingman had a faster fire rate and nearly pinpoint hipfire accuracy, but what made it really shine was the fact that it could be loaded up to a massive 12 rounds, and its damage was really great, sometimes hitting over 100 damage headshots with a pistol. All of these benefits, combined with the fact that players didn't spawn in with armor or helmets, meant you could obliterate enemies with just one weapon. It took a little while for Apex Legends to get to a post-launch state where the game wasn't overly buggy, as there were a ton of hotfixes early on, but when Season 2 rolled around, we finally saw one of the first new items to come into the game. This was mostly because Season 1 was an odd one, lots of hype, but no real new content beyond Octane. So when Season 2 came out with Wattson, a new weapon, the L-Star, and it was pretty trash back then, and a bunch of new hop-ups and other changes, it was a pretty exciting time. Little did we know, Disruptor rounds were going to be one of Apex Legends' most broken items ever. Disruptor rounds would not only slightly buff the damage against shielded enemies like they do today, they would do more than 2 times the damage to these players, giving the alternator an unprecedented amount of power. 3 SMG rounds to wipe purple shields, and barely more than 1 to wipe a gray Evo. It only took 3 days for Respawn to nerf the damage buff from 2.26 to 1.7 times, and then a month later it would take another hit from 1.7 times to 1.55 times. The overall time frame when Disruptor was broken was so small, but they are still in the forefront of many players' memories nearly 5 years later. Everyone remembers the days of Lifeline's revive shield, where you would tap that knocked player and get an invincible shield to protect them during a revive. However, one less people remembers that you used to actually have to drop on the player to revive them. It was not automatic or remote. This was actually a very unique playstyle where you could bait enemy shots and then pop up and insta-kill someone when they were reloading. But Lifeline's OG power really comes from the days of fast heals. Lifeline used to be able to use shields and healing items at just around half the speed. The days where you could pop a battery and in just over 3 seconds kind of meant Lifeline was not just a crazy good support legend, but one that could tank shots and heal up mega fast. You could also combo this in with the original gold armor, which also let you use shield items at twice the speed. Lifeline has had a small resurgence over the past couple years, but she is still nothing like she used to be. Does she need her revive shield back or fast heals? Drop a comment down below and let me know what you think. It's time for an honorable mention as we move into the top 5, but this time we're going to look at something that was actually broken, not busted. Loba is always a decent character, but it took a long time for her use and pick rate to go up simply because her tactical just did not work. Oftentimes you would throw it and it would get sent back to you as the game could not identify where a player was to get teleported. There were a ton of manual fixes to the specific locations, but it wouldn't be for over a year after her release where it would finally get fixed and Loba would become a more reliable choice that she is today. If you were an original Apex player and you haven't remembered some of the things we have mentioned so far, well, one thing that basically every OG Apex player will remember is Wraith in her most formidable and relevant state. This is of course going to be her insta-phase tactical ability. Wraith used to be so OP that she could take fights by running in, doing damage, and pressing her tactical would give her an out of jail free card every single time. This unprecedented flexibility and freedom for a legend would keep her relevant at the top of the pick rate for so long. Even to this day, her pick rate is influenced by just how many players did use her during these first few months of Apex. It's also worth a mention that while her tactical was insane, it was the combination of this, her original run animation with the arms back, and her incredibly small hitbox that made her a real legend that she has become. I'm gonna let the footage for our next item speak for itself. But in reality, you kind of had to be there to just realize how crazy the charge rifle was during its Season 3 release. It took energy ammo, easy to come by, it had a dumb amount of rounds in a magazine, reload was pretty quick, and it basically didn't have any damage drop off at range. Not to mention it could do 100 or so to the body, and even greater if you connect it to the head. It didn't take long for players to realize this brand new weapon was great, and when everyone in the lobby was running a charge rifle, it made it a real headache as you couldn't really move around with getting that little bee stinging you in the back. It took a lot of nerfs and eventually a full-blown rework to get the charge to a fair spot, but Season 3 for sure had one of the most formidable weapon releases of all time. One of the most controversial changes in early Apex Legends history was the removal of bunny hop healing, and rightfully so as it added a skill gap to the game. This does get our third spot in the most busted things in Apex history. Bee hopping would see a few nerfs over the years, and while bunny hop healing can still be done with movement legends like Octane with a stim, or if you are sliding down hills, bunny hop healing in Apex Legends used to be one of those things that would allow players to get away and escape out of really bad situations while also healing at the same time due to how you could keep your momentum up while moving. Certain legends like Lifeline bunny hop healing while also getting the previously mentioned faster heals, or Pathfinder grappling in and out of fights while healing while skating across the ground was pretty much just next level unbeatable. Ultimately, Respawn nerfed it as they felt it rewarded bad decision making since players could still run away while getting healed up after making a bad push. We've spoken about a few overpowered things so far, but when it comes to raw power and usefulness, there really is no one even close to Gibraltar when it comes to not only how powerful they were, but also how long they were strong for. The original Gibraltar, and really for the first 2 to 3 years of Apex, had a nuts amount of usefulness. Gibraltar not only has always been fortified and a big boy, but his gun shield used to block 75 damage instead of 50. It would absorb a full hit from a Kraber, meaning Gibraltar would take no damage at all because there was no bleed through, so he was the anti-Kraber legend, and his bubble has always had that fast revive, but it also had faster heals when him and his entire squad were inside the dome. The length of Gibraltar's bubble used to be longer and the cooldown shorter, and because the Peacekeeper and Mastiff both were very strong shotguns for a long time, this meant Gibby had a ton of viability in bubble fights. An OG Gibby in and around a bubble with a purple and eventually red Evo would oftentimes act as an enemy with up to 400 health with all his tanky characteristics. Gibraltar was never really that fun sweat legend, so he never quite gained the popularity that like a Wraith or a Pathfinder did, or really that he deserved, but when it came to an actual legend with the complete package, I failed to find a legend that could bring as much to the squad as a Gibraltar could. Before number 1, did we miss any other busted things in Apex's history? Be sure to drop a comment down below and let everyone know. It has been nearly 3 years since the dark times, but Seer in his original form was absolutely a headache and menace to go up against. Many probably remember the days of an overpowered Seer, but do you remember just how much he could do at launch? Seer used to not only scan enemies for 8 seconds, completely revealing them and their health bar, but his tactical would slow enemies, stop heals, stop revives, and stop ability usage. It would also flashbang players and shake their screens, and it would do 10 damage. And at the end game of a ranked match, when there were 8 to 10 Seers around and everyone was using the tactical dealing 10 damage, you would literally just get penalized over and over, using all your resources till you were dead. Seer could sprint around with his tactical up at full speed, and his ultimate was only a 90-second cooldown to give the entire squad wall hacks for 30 seconds. Be sure to check out this video for a bunch of Apex Legends myths and misconceptions. Hit that like button, and as always, happy gaming, legends.